So in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to get the best handheld footage from a Lumix camera. Now, I personally am going to be using the S5 IIX, and there's a ton of different ways that you can get amazing handheld footage from a Lumix camera, but there's also a bunch of different looks that you're also able to achieve along the way. So I'm going to show all the different ways and options and looks that you can achieve in specific settings that you need to change on your Lumix camera and how you can get the best results. So let's start off with the first topic, which is going to be talking about the settings of your camera. First off, for whatever reason, if your general IBIS is turned off, well, turn it on. If you go into the menu system, go to the video icon on the bottom page, press the button for image stabilization, and then click operation mode and press normal. Now, this is just the normal IBIS that comes with Lumix cameras. And honestly, if you, for whatever reason, weren't using IBIS beforehand, your footage is going to suddenly start looking a lot better. Now, the second couple settings I do want to mention here is the electronic stabilization and the boost image stabilization, because there's different purposes on when you use the other one. So depending on your camera, you either have 2 or 3 different modes for your Lumix camera. Either your electronic stabilization is on or off, or if you're using one of the new face detect Lumix cameras like a lot of people are now, there's off, standard, and high. So in most scenarios, you can probably just get away with off for handheld footage and it's gonna look buttery smooth. But when you're in scenarios where you wanna start getting your footage from handheld to looking like a gimbal without having to put a camera on a gimbal, that's when electronic stabilization really comes in handy. The first one is going to be standard stabilization. Now, this is about a 1.1x crop depending on the model. This is just my testing and findings. So this will give you almost really buttery smooth footage. It kind of gives you that floaty handheld look that a lot of people like if you prefer that. Now, then when you switch to electronic stabilization, it is a 1.45x crop-ish around there. And this is where it's starting to basically turn into a gimbal. And one other thing I did want to mention in this specific part is if you're shooting on the S5 IIX, or even if you're on a Micro Four Third camera, consider what the crop is doing to your image. If you're on a full frame camera like the S5 II or 2X or the S9, well, if you are shooting in full frame in 24 or 30 frames a second in 4K, you're fine. You know, that crop will go cropped in. But if you're shooting in 4K 48 or 60 frames a second and it has an APS-C crop or a 1.5x crop, when you start doing electronic stabilization, that 1.5x crop with another 1.45x crop for high electronic stabilization gets to the point where you're basically shooting on a Micro Four Third camera with a full frame sensor. So just consider what type of crop modes, or if you're shooting in slow-mo, consider that before turning on electronic stabilization. Now, the second setting for the Lumix cameras is the Boost IS, which basically the only time this setting should be turned on is when you want your camera to look like it's on a tripod. So still images, typically no moving shots. You can get away with some panning here and there, like panning up or panning left and right. But I see this mistake happen so much where people think if I turn on electronic stabilization and Boost IS and I start walking, I can get like, no, just don't. Stay away from that, because the camera will try to make your camera look like it's on a tripod and you're gonna have a lot more unwanted left and right shifts back and forth. So if you don't want any of that happening to your image, only use Boost IS when you want your image to be completely locked off and like it's on a tripod. This is great for telephoto lenses when you're super zoomed in and you need that image to be as stable as possible with no big movements whatsoever. Apart from the settings, the next thing you want to do is try to add weight to your camera to give a more natural handheld looking image. Especially some people just like that shakiness. You might want to turn off that IBIS. What's going to help is by adding weight to your camera, you know, rigging it out. So this just alone, trying to handheld just this with a lens is fine, but when you want to start getting more of those natural looking handheld shots, rigging this up, building it out into a cage system will give you those more natural looks. This is a great example of a huge rig that can give you that natural handheld look. You can turn off the IBIS and get really smooth shots or get that natural shakiness that handheld is able to provide with a heavier rig like this, pitting on, you know, things like the Rig Pro, a monitor, a bigger lens, having like a place to have a second hand to hold it so you can have this hand be free. Things like this makes it give you more natural handheld looking footage when you start rigging it up and adding weight to the entire system. And the last and final thing, which kind of tags on rigging up your camera, is using products like sack. So for example, this is a camera saddle thing where you're able to rest your entire camera on this. You strap this around your body, and with this, it kind of pits your weight kind of on your shoulders and your back in different areas, and you're able to switch that around. Now, the specific reason I like using a product like this paired up when I have my camera really rigged out is because this causes the strain that's on my lower back and on especially on my arms to last a lot longer throughout the day. If you are shooting weddings, for example, or you're shooting any long commercials or events for long periods of time, having a rig like this is just gonna hurt your arms, it's gonna hurt your lower back, and it's gonna put a lot of strain on your body. So using products like the sack right here is able to kind of reduce that strain on your arms and your lower back, and not necessarily pitting all the weight on this camera when you're doing the handheld shots. But the in-between moments when you're just walking around or when you need to put the camera to rest, you can lay it on this, you can put this on, you know, the ground, or put it on a chair, have the camera lay on top of this, especially for safe keepings instead of just the dirt or the gross ground or wherever you are. Pin the camera on top of this just kind of also keeps it protected throughout the day. But again, the biggest thing that this thing is able to do for you is kind of reduce that strain on your arms, reduce that strain on your lower back, and kind of just like, it literally says save your back on this. That's the whole purpose of getting something like this. And as someone who's really young, I'm only 24, starting to do more commercial shoots with this type of rig or rigs like this more and more, I notice the pain, and I am still decently young, only doing a couple shoots, you know, a couple times a month for my commercial work and for my own video production company. But the things like this really ends up making a huge difference throughout a shoot day, because you can rest your camera on top of it. And on top of that, it's kind of nifty. It has little pouches right here. You have some pouches right here. You're able to put, you know, some snacks in there if you're a little bit hungry, a little bar as you're resting your camera down, eat some grubs. You can use this to get handheld shots and get more natural movement. What it's gonna be doing is it's gonna be taking this weight of the camera, pitting it on this, and then allowing your hands and arms to do micro adjustments to the movement. You don't want to use all the weight on the sack and like let the camera just have natural movement from that, which you can, you know, you can like kind of get lower shots and have the weight rest on that. But what your hands are doing is the micro adjustments, but it's not trying to force your hands doing the adjustments, getting natural looking footage and holding all the weight. You're basically eliminating holding all the weight on your arms, getting, again, more natural handheld looking footage. It's $170. There's going to be a link in the description if you want to buy and support the channel if you're interested in this product. But I hope that was helpful. If you guys have any questions or other thoughts on how to get better handheld looking footage using your Lumix cameras, let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see this entire rig video for this camera, check out that video right there. YouTube recommends you might like this video right here. Until next one, guys, peace.